Well, welcome everyone. My name is Andy Traub. I am just really honored and blessed to have you all join us. Sten, good morning to you, my friend.
Morning.
Sten has a real passion for not just in growing his business, but helping other people grow their businesses. And we truly believe that this is right before Thanksgiving, that the things you hear today, whether you have not charged for advice or you're looking to charge, or you already do charge for advice, there are some practical things you're going to learn today that will help you add revenue. When you add revenue, that means you work with more clients. When you work with clients, that means you get to change more people's lives for the better. And so that's the ultimate goal here. One of the issues that we run into in this world of helping people learn to charge for their advice are the obstacles to that. So here are some challenges to charging for your advice, and then I'm going to have Sten talk about how those can be overcome. So first, within the industry, many of you were just told the way you get policies in place, the way you get AUM is you have to just give away all of your ideas. You have to give away. Even some of you have been taught to give away a full financial plan, and that is how you get a client. And so that's an obstacle to charging, is you were told, no, that's not what you use it for. Second is you just don't know where to start. You don't know if you need to go get a bunch of ideas, a bunch of planning software. Do you have to hire some paraplanner? Do you have to go get more certifications? Am I even allowed to do that? Have I been in the business long enough to do that? Are my ideas worth paying for? How do I service people for 12 months if they're paying me for 12 months? These are all obstacles. You don't know how to price it. Well, how do I price getting someone to start to invest? What is that worth? How do I price someone taking advantage of a research and development tax credit that saves them $300,000? Can I charge them $200,000? Like what do you even begin, right? And then last, you were told success takes a long time. And so you just sort of trudge along and do what most people do. And thankfully, Sten is impatient in a healthy way. And our goal with Elite Advisor Network is to help you recognize and reach your potential faster. So that's what we're going to do today. Sten, I'm going to throw it to you now and talk about some of these truths about charging for your advice. And we know these are true because Sten lives them out. The three advisors we have with us today, they're going to share their stories that are living them out. So Sten, first one, your advice is worth paying for. Speak to that.
I want everybody on the call to think about a time in your life where you found something out and you had this overwhelming response of, if I only would have known that sooner. Like the compounding benefit to me is almost incalculable. To me, that was what this was. I entered the business with Northwestern Mutual, hoped to just meet a bunch of people to sell insurance to. I was 23, so none of my friends had money. Hard way to start the business. But I was told, just do it harder for longer and eventually it'll work out. And I love the business and I love helping people. So, I was willing to kind of grind it out. Made the jump over to AUM, and it was get out there at 24 and try to get people to let you manage their money. I was living in Nashville, didn't know anybody, competing against advisors that have had these relationships for a long time. I was hoping that I was just going to bump into somebody at the right time. And honestly, that they weren't really willing to shop it around. Like that they were too lazy to go out there and say, hey, is there an advisor with 10 years more experience? Or, hey, this person happens to be here, I'm going to sign this paperwork. Eventually, I was like, this is just a hard, long way to be successful. Until I had this awakening of, wait, my time is worth something. My advice is worth something. If I build my superpowers as an advisor, somebody could pay me just for helping them make better decisions apart from the product. And so we'll show you kind of what my progression has been from collecting fees and what it's done for my overall practice. But whether you're dabbling in this, which I have a lot of friends that are advisors that dabble in it, because it's like, well, it fell in my lap. I just figured out a way to charge for it, but I don't think about it as a meaningful vertical of my business. Or you've never charged before. And you're like I was, where it was almost an internal response was to reject it with a little bit of frustration of like, you can't do that. That's because if that is true, the way I've been doing it is I've left so much value on the table. My business could have grown so much faster. Like I had to internalize and accept that there was a better way I didn't know about. Your advice is worth paying for. And I had to be told that initially and kind of hope it was true until now. We have close to 5 years under our belt of people continuing to pay for it happily. to where my fee is no longer hidden in a policy or in an AUM account. It is a fee they see on a form and they say, great, here's the check. When do we meet next? 5 years ago, I charged $1,500 to 2 attorneys that made over 300 grand a year. And I was worried they were going to say no. Now our average fee is $10,000 and we're getting more referrals and we have to be picky about who we work with. So that is the potential of it. And your advice is worth paying for.
This is a unique one. We've got a lot more to work through, but I love this and it takes some humility, but your best ideas aren't your ideas. So Sten, where do you get your ideas from?
There's nothing new under the sun. And for me, the pressure I felt in the first year of planning where it felt like I had to create stuff and it was like, well, I did a couple things. What do I do next? And obviously that was a lack of process and communication that I had to solve to allow myself to just trust the process and know we were adding value. But I get ideas from everywhere else. I get ideas from CPAs, attorneys. I meet with my COI network a lot. I subscribe to CPA newsletters. I jump onto calls because I know that one idea I don't have yet is worth so much to the practice. The cost segregation, great example. As soon as I met with a CPA that specialized in that and they walked me, spent about an hour with me showing me the steps of it. Again, not so that I would be the expert, but so I was dangerous enough to recognize the opportunity. We probably have 5 A plus clients now just because of that idea. Those 5 A plus clients probably represent 15 million, 20 million of AUM, probably some really big insurance deals too. Oh, and by the way, each one of them paid us $7,500 to $10,000 up front to do that for them. Like, doesn't that sound like a better practice? Doesn't that sound more enjoyable when you can enter an engagement with ideas and adding value versus, I don't know if you need this thing yet, but I'm going to try to sell it to you anyways. As a business owner with employees, with a family, it's really hard to meet somebody. And this is something we all have to fight and say, man, you don't need me for the next year, probably. Here's a couple quick ideas, but my business is going to fail if I make it a usual practice of meeting with people for free. So how do we overcome that?
And I think that only when you've got the check in hand and it went through from a client, do you understand that this can be worth it even if you don't place a product, even if you don't collect it even. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of firms now. And I'll tell you guys first, this is coming. Like the fact that we're getting calls from Raymond James, Thrivent, Mass Mutual, and they're asking us how to do this better. The first step of this, and we're all going to know this 10, 20 years from now when we look back, is the first step in it was charge $500 for a plan as a loss leader. Like get them to pay something so they value your advice more. That's kind of the general theme on mass that's happening now, mass scale. Where we need to get as soon as possible is that even if somebody doesn't buy something from you, it's still a win-win relationship.
Yeah.
You can run a healthy business off the revenue, that you're not annoyed when they call and ask you a question because they haven't transferred their IRA or bought the insurance yet. Even if they don't do any of that for a year or two, the consulting fee alone allows you to run a healthy business.
And I'll take this last one, actually. We have to remember that our version 1 is the best version you've ever had. And it will get better, but you will not get to the version that's in your head until you get to the first version, and then the second and the third. And it is, you will take care of people. You will do this with great character. You will probably over deliver early on, but you have to start with version 1. We're going to help you get there faster today. Sten, we're going to look at your progression. If you could just kind of speak to this from a 10,000 foot view. This is Sten's fee progression. This year, he'll collect $600,000 just in fees. This is not AUM collected. This is not policy revenue. This is just fees. And so, Sten, I know you started off at $1,500. This is the progression. You can see it was under 100, and then it was about 200. Then it was 350. Pretty steady. And I want to ask you, I think you said your average planning fee was about 10 now. Is that right?
Yeah, it ranges anywhere from a fee minimum for us in the firm. We had to set this for the 3 advisors was $5,000. We'll do some under that if it's a quick engagement or if it's really just us discounting for somebody that needs help. But generally speaking, we don't do any fees less than $5,000, and we have clients that are paying us $3,000-$4,000 a month as well.
Right. So there's some biggies and then there's some smaller ones, obviously, but it's an average of about 10. people always, these are questions that pop up. Will you ever discount, an AUM, basis points or whatever for, if someone does planning? Like, do you ever kind of try to balance that out if someone is a planning client as well?
Yeah, the industry, and this is how I worked for a long time, was, hey, pay me this planning fee or this AUM fee, and I'm going to bundle everything in there. Like, I'm going to include all these services for you. But we all know that our mind is focused on the AUM. Our mind is focused on the next client, the AUM client. For us, if a client comes in with AUM and their planning fee, don't do this in reverse. It doesn't work as well. If you try to discount the consulting fee for them giving you AUM, it's still making the product the priority. We say, you pay us a fee. This is what our time and what our ideas are worth. Any kind of product is a separate engagement that comes next. Oh, if we get to that and you actually do transfer that, we have a different AUM tier that's about 18 to 20% off of our traditional AUM fee. So that is a value add for planning clients, because remember, now they're paying us separate for our time and ideas. We no longer have to bundle that in. The other value of that to business owners, especially because that's who we work with mostly, is the consulting that is tied to their business can be deducted.
It's a business expense.
Yeah, you need to defer to their CPA, but if you're consulting on their 401k, answering some benefit questions, key man stuff, like, as much of that fee needs to be tied to their business as possible. And it is amazing how easy it is for somebody to write a check from their business account versus their personal account. And so that market for us, I'd probably say 75% of our consulting planning clients are now business owners.
Right. And that's where you want to get to. And again, I just want to speak to the fear, the hesitation maybe that some of you are experiencing when you hear that. Man, I don't have that many.
Andy, jump back to the bar graph for me.
Yeah.
Fees. So year one, these are rolling 12s-ish. They're close to the calendar years, but rolling 12. So in the first 12 months, we did under 100,000. A lot of those were just our, higher earning clients that needed a little bit of tax planning, wanted us to talk their CPA. So complexity, our version one was not that complex. It was really recognizing who would pay us $2,500. Hey, whenever we have a new prospect coming in now, I'm going to open my mind to, hey, maybe there's a planning engagement first here. Some advisors I know do a planning onboarding fee where they require every client to pay, $2,000, $2,500 just to join the practice because of the upstart work there. Early on, it was us just kind of piecing together. It wasn't probably until 2020 that we added a team member to kind of help oversee the planning. And we started being a little more targeted with our service model and our client. So version one for you might be, I'm just going to talk about planning as an option now. Say, hey, here's one way you can work with us. People will say yes. And if they're not, you need to talk through your process and how you're communicating the value. But your version one probably isn't, hey, I'm jumping into business owner conversations that I'm not comfortable with.
Right.
It's, hey, keep doing what you're doing now. Just give somebody the option to pay you for that time as opposed to having to buy something.
And we talked about how big your team can be with that. But the team that could handle, let's say, a million, probably 750 to $1 million in planning fees is yourself, an admin, a main head of planning, director of operations, right? And probably
I'll walk through real quick. So you'll have a lead advisor, you'll have a secondary advisor that is there to take notes, kind of follow through on items. A director of planning, a paraplanner, a relationship manager, depending on how many clients you have, that could be one or two. And then for me, from a business standpoint, I need a practice manager. So a team of 5 to 6 is dangerous. Like, you could be a 3 million plus practice with a team of 5 to 6. It doesn't need to be 10, but it can't be 2. And so our version one had 3 of us. And then as we grew, what's great about adding a 6-figure vertical to your business that also generates more AUM and insurance is it provides more margin to grow the team. For me, the goal was not to add a bunch more work so that I was homeless. The goal was, hey, how do we add more value, but give me more margin to add to my team? So now in my career, I have the most flexibility I've ever had in my schedule. I'll leave for 2 to 3 weeks at a time to travel with my family. And we're doing more AUM, more insurance, and more planning than we ever had. So that was the goal. It took us, 4 to 5 years to get there. And we believe people can get there in, 3 if they have what we had to fumble through on our own.
Yeah, I'm not going to test to Sten leaving without telling me, because sometimes I'm like, "Where you at?" And you're like, "I'm in Florida this week," and I'm like, "Oh, thanks, bro. Appreciate you telling me." Anyway, that's probably a
Zoom World,
private.
bro.
So we're going to speak to the first group. There's two groups we're going to speak to, and I'm actually going to bring in an advisor that we work with right now, and that's Jason. If you could unmute for me. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Andy.
And it is morning because it's earlier where you are. Maybe tell folks who you are, where you live, and why you started the company you started.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So like Sten, I grew up in a small town in rural Oregon. We had about 150 people in my small town. I started my business when I was 27 years old. So this was in April of this coming year. It'll be 26 years for me in the business. Been doing it a long time. I've done it with a partner along the way. We met really right around the end of our training class in a brokerage firm. And we spent most of our time in brokerage firms. And in 2017, we went independent and formed NBC Capital Advisors. So we're a team of four. We manage a little north of 500 million. We do mostly asset management. We've jumped into planning here recently, more and more planning. We're just a four-person team, like I said. Our revenues are probably around 3.4 million this year. So we're a very efficient team, but we stay busy. I'll be 53 this coming year. So this has been real fun learning all of the planning aspects that Sten's model has brought forth to my attention. It's been very refreshing to take on a new challenge. So that's a little bit of my background. I have one son, been married for a long time, and he's a junior in high school.
Awesome. I want to ask you specifically, Jason, you wouldn't say this about yourself because you're humble, but you've achieved what a lot of people want to achieve and feel like is the goal in the business, a certain amount of AUM, a lean practice. You have great relationships with clients, you're good at what you do. Why have you decided to add consulting, planning? You have been doing it, but why have you decided to start to charge for it?
Well, I see there are three main areas that we add value to our clients' lives. The first one is asset management. I think the second thing that we can do for folks is be proactive in our communication with them, make them feel very connected to their money, and make them feel that they're working with an advisor that cares deeply about them and is attentive to them. The third piece is planning. I've learned some incredible strategies by hanging out with you guys, Sten in particular, learning some of the ways that you save folks in taxes. And there's just a tremendous amount of value that you can bring to folks. Mm-hmm. So if I can be elite at those three areas of value to clients, I think that's going to separate our firm from others out there and really end up doing the right thing for clients. It's about doing the right thing as much as we can to bring as much value to their lives. But after you do this for 25, 26 years, I wouldn't say that I ever got complacent or the whole thing got calcified, but it's really nice to have something new and refreshing to kind of bring a little sunshine to your days. It's just, you kind of get inundated with doing the same thing over and over, and to bring some freshness into your day is pretty nice. I think the professionalism of leading with ideas, basically the professionalism of Sten's model, is it's going to separate you from other advisors. We just did a wonderful lunch with a group of 7-8 bankers last week. We didn't talk once about product. All we talked about were various tax planning strategies for business owners. And we were in that meeting for 2 hours getting peppered with questions. We didn't talk about fees at all in terms of asset management fees. And it just changed everything to lead with ideas as opposed to, always talking about the markets, which I'm quite good at, but it just changed the dynamic significantly. So.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to learn. Jason joined our Elite Advisor Network community recently, and has just been very open to making some changes. And I wanted him to be on so that you who are listening or live or via recording would understand that sometimes you can get to the top of the mountain and realize that, wait, this isn't everything. There's they forgot to tell me that, there could be more here. And so Jason, I'm excited to see the changes you made in your business and are making. And I think that the next 20 years of business could be a lot of fun for you because of the changes you're making. So thanks for being here as an example. I think Jason may hang out for part of the Q&A.
Jason, I'll ask you a quick question. To those that may, and was a fear I had of like, I have to become a brand new advisor overnight. Like I have to go and study for 2 years before I can position myself to add value from a planning coaching standpoint. How have you kind of addressed that, mindset hurdle?
Ask the question one more time. Kind of went out for me there for a second.
You're good. So I've talked to advisors. They think they have to become a whole new advisor. Like you've been in this business, been successful for 26 years. How have you addressed that potential mental obstacle of, I wasn't charging for this on Friday and I'm going to start asking for a fee on Monday?
That's a great question. I think I listened to several of your podcasts. I just went for it. And I know that sounds very simple. I'm kind of stealing, the mindset of like Nike, just do it. And that's all I did. Instead of just saying, hey, we do all this planning for free. It's kind of a loss leader. Let us show you our good work. And then maybe we'll get to manage your money. I just said, hey, the cost of this plan is now X. And nobody batted an eye. And going through, I will tell you, the first thing I did was hang that darn whiteboard in my office. Everybody needs to go right out, grab a whiteboard, and start sketching these ideas out for people. Show them some ideas for free, quantify it, saying, hey, if you do this solo 401k, it's going to save you 30 grand in taxes, so on and so forth. And when you just put like a $3,000, $4,000 fee next to that savings, people don't bat an eye. They'll write a check. So I just went for it and just asked for it. Again, I've been doing, I think, brave things for 25 years. I think this industry just simply forces you to do brave things. So I guess I have the calluses over the years of just asking for things. And so I simply just did it the way that you recommended. And it's, nobody has said no thus far. Now, I haven't jumped out to the level that you are, some of the more advanced plans where I'm doing $10,000, $15,000 work for folks, but we're starting in that $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 range with some pretty good success so far. So far, everything looks really good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, this life will reward you for taking risk. And I think
the good news
absolutely.
All they can say is no. And if you've been in this business long enough, you've heard plenty of no's. They can't hurt you. And you have other referral sources, you have other opportunities. Just keep going until you get some yeses, and you'll get plenty of yeses. And you don't need to know a ton of these ideas. I mean, I'm always blown away at the library of planning strategies that you and Wes have. I'm nowhere near the level of ideas, but I have enough. I have enough to add some real value to get started with this. So I welcome everybody to be brave. Get about 5 great planning strategies in your back pocket, share them with everybody, know what type of real savings it is for people. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how many folks just say, great, let me write you a check today.
Well, thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. So one of the first ideas that we want to share with you, if you have never charged, is this idea of ideas first prospecting. And give me one second. Yeah. And so one of the main things of this is it's a shift. And so Sten, I want to remind folks where we're gathering ideas from. Jason talked about it. You've talked about it. You're gathering ideas from other people. And I love this phrase of planting possibility instead of pushing products. When you lead with ideas, Sten, what are some of the things you hear? And so these advisors who are on today will hear from clients when you lead with ideas. What are their reactions usually?
So with this method, and again, total paradigm shift for me being in the business. I used to lead with illustrations. Oh, you have money. Hey, look at what this has done in the past 20 years. Or hey, here's a policy. Here's how it may perform. And those meetings weren't that exciting or sexy. I finally was able to try to put myself in the client's shoes, and I was like, would I be excited to come back and meet with Sten in my early years? Probably not. It was like, I may be doing this because I know I have to, but can we just get it over with and move on? Now with our process, when I'm on a whiteboard, those meetings are just way more energized. creative. Clients are saying, I've never heard of that before. When can we meet again? And, oh, I have somebody you need to meet. Because ideas travel. And I love how, Andy speaks in analogies, and I love it. Is in storytelling, is like, imagine a client leaving your office, going to their son or daughter's sports game, standing on the sideline. The chances they're going to say, hey, I just met with this advisor who sold me a term insurance policy, or, got me a mutual fund or ETF with a smaller expense, like that, those conversations aren't happening. But our business owner clients that say, man, I was just at this meeting, and have you heard of this tax strategy? No, I haven't heard of that. You need to call this person. Like, it's that level of like, I did not know this before. Why hasn't my CPA told me this? And the good news is you don't need to be the CPA or the attorney or the person that's going to file it. You need enough to illustrate the idea and make some assumptions. And assumptions are, and this is why you can do it in meeting one. I don't know your full tax situation yet, but let's assume your effective tax rate is 30%. If you fund this account and you deduct this and it saves you $15,000 in tax in this year alone, if we do this for the next 10 years, that'll save you $150,000 in tax. It'll cost you $5,000 to work with us. On the board, like Jason said, $150,000 saved over 10 years costs us this to pay for it. Like, that is our responsibility to paint that. And idea first prospecting, it will become the way most advisors want to do it. When we allow ourselves to stop leading with product because we think that is the only thing we have to bring, versus I'm about to give this person an experience that they haven't had before.
So when you do ideas first prospecting, so for those of you who have not started to charge for your advice, this is the first thing. You've got to shift to ideas first prospecting. That your goal is not product. It is to give them ideas, quantify those ideas, and Sten does this. We're like, that was our first meeting. Imagine what happens if you work with us for a year, right? And what that does is it does the second thing, which is allows you to fish with a bigger net, this will increase your closing percentage. So I want to share some numbers, and these have fleshed themselves out in multiple different advisors' practices. So 10% of folks have an immediate need. So 1 out of 10 people are like, yes, I've got money to move. Yes, I have this product, like that. But that's, Sten, you like to say everybody's hoping and praying they run into this person today, right?
I mean, I laugh when I think about, Sten in his 20s, that my family's security was based on me hopefully bumping into one of these people enough times, fast enough, and them saying yes. Because that just seems way too risky. That's then there's the industry doesn't want us to know that.
No, and the next group, and which is why the industry teaches you just keep calling people because you're shooting for 1 out of 10, right? But then you've got 30%. They're not ready. They don't want anything. They don't even want paid advice. Or maybe they recently did something, maybe, but this is of the people you meet. So we're not doing very good so far, right? But then these are
also the people that'll come to your dinners and let you buy them lunch and never do anything. And in my Raymond James days, I had a folder, super high-tech folder, manila folder next to my desk that I would go through and call my prospects. And I remember looking, there were some people in there for 3 years.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. So
we should change this free steak. We call this a free steak group, 30%. But then you've got 60%. And I'm gonna just guess that if you're hearing my voice, 50 plus people that are new here, that you're gonna be skeptical to this, but it's true. 60% of the people you meet are willing to pay for ideas if they see the value.
To some degree. That could be a $1,500 plan. That could be a $10,000 plan. They have a need that, if presented, needs to be solved and are willing to pay for it.
Right. So the question is, do you want to shoot for 10% or 70% of the market when you meet with prospects? This is the idea of fishing with a bigger net. And again, it's easy for us to say this because we're on the other side of it and you're thinking, oh, is that really true? We work with hundreds of advisors teaching them this, and it's true. And so we want to help you fish with a bigger net. We want to help your closing percentage to go up. It's good to, meet with more people, but I would rather take less shots and make more, right? And go, oh, you want more points? Just, shoot 100 shots a game. No, that's not going to work, right? That gets very tiring. And yes, you're going to get some no's. But we really, truly believe that when you lead with ideas, you'll be fishing with a bigger net because you're leading with ideas.
And Andy, I mean, this happened over and over to us. Advisors that are not allowed to charge for their advice yet. We have like Edward Jones example to where their closing rate on AUM clients spiked because they started speaking this way. They are working on getting to charge for advice, but if you just speak this way, if you use all the strategies we say, even if you're not quite to the point where you can slide a proposal and collect a fee from somebody, you will close more AUM. You will get more insurance, even if you're not able to charge on day one.
Absolutely. It is a differentiator. The next group of people are if you're already charging for your ideas. Andy Thomas, if you can unmute for me. Andy's a part of our Elite Advisor Network community. There he is. How are you this morning, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining us. Tell folks where you are and tell us how you started Thomas Financial Advisors.
I'm in Denver. I run a small solo independent RIA. Started it with my father 12 years ago. He's since retired and now it's just me. So, the good and bad of running a really tiny practice, I'm working on the very early steps of kind of like getting that full-time admin, client relationship manager.
So how long have you been charging for your advice then?
About 2.5 years. So I kind of just, I guess similar to Jason, sort of just winged it and started throwing out some ideas and then came across the original How to Charge Planning to Succeed program, and which really has helped me add intentionality around it. When I look at back what I was doing kind of prior to hooking up with you guys and in the greater EAN community, it was very clumsy, not real intentional around like systems and deliverables. So it's definitely, I can see my progression over the past 2.5 years to be much more efficient and specific in what I'm trying to do.
So if you could be as specific as you can, because there's people here that like, okay, I'm open to charging or I'm already charging. What's something you can do to sort of, level up your planning? Are you planning to charge more? Are you planning to, change something with your systems? Well, how are you going to increase revenue as it relates to your planning in 2023?
I mean, the easy answer is I'm just going to keep getting better at what I'm doing on the planning side. So for me, that is like reaching out to prospects and coming up, for me, it's like, I'm just saying I have 4 big ideas I'm going to try to talk to everybody about. And, very much along the lines of what we were just talking about and just try to keep pushing forward and, simultaneously make my deliverables, like what I call my executive summary, better, more concise.
Right.
What I'm giving them on the back end as well.
I think that you and I talked about this maybe last week about, you haven't had very many no's. And so one of my encouragements to you was, don't do it just because of this, but to keep pushing the fee higher, because if everyone says yes, there's a chance that you may be undercharging, right? Because I know you're quantifying the value, you're not saying here's $7,000 in savings, pay me $6,500, that's not it. You're helping them and showing a lot more value than you're charging. But again, Andy has been doing this and he's getting the systems better and he is charging more. And again, he's a pretty slimmed down practice. So Andy, I appreciate you joining us. And again, if you could stick around for the Q&A, that'd be awesome because folks might have questions for you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So this is the first thing and this is something, Sten, I'm going to have you speak to this in regards to realtors. But this is a strategy. If you're already charging for advice, how can you add 50K in revenue? That's what we want to help you do today. Okay. So we keep talking about these strategies, have strategies. A targeting strategy is this. It's a strategy used to target a specific group of professionals or those holding a specific, I mistyped there, holding a specific set of assets. So it could be real estate, could be something other than that. So Sten, tell me specifically, how has your company used targeting strategies instead of waiting for people to come to you, instead using a strategy and then going to people who might be in a specific financial situation to make them planning clients?
Yeah. So some of the biggest wins in the past, one of the first ones we kind of felt fairly novel to us, so we grabbed onto it, was R&D tax credits. when we learned, again, sat with a local regional CPA firm that had a specialty in this and said, tell me about this. They're like, oh, there's actually 18 different tax credits for business owners. Well, I didn't know about any of them. Well, R&D is if anybody spends money to create or improve on anything, whether it's technology, whether it's a widget, they can look back 3 years and capture a tax credit on all the money they've invested, including the salaries paid to people that worked on that project. And if it's like over 80% of their time was spent on that project, you can include 100% of their salary. And as a result of finding out about that idea, we started saying, okay, what type of companies does this apply to most? And within the first 3-4 months, we closed 4 consulting clients just based on this idea alone. One was $3,000 a month. One was a $30,000 upfront flat fee. Because imagine saying, hey, here's our fee. I just found you $300,000 value. So we used that specific strategy to focus on clients. The next one we did that was kind of bigger was cost segregation. People that invest in real estate typically, at least in my past, were not great clients. If I met with somebody and they're like, oh, I have 50 million in real estate, but I don't want to invest any money and I don't want insurance, I'd be like, okay, well, see you later. Now I could be like, oh, you generate $10 million of revenue in a year. You have problems we can help solve. It got us into a great group of clients that, in turn sell real estate and become AUM clients, need really big insurance and estate planning cases as well. One my team found was in Tennessee. Tennessee's one of 2 states that S corps aren't really a great idea. It's just people usually use LLCs, but if you're a realtor, there's you can file your tax return differently. And if you make up to like the wage base, Social Security wage base, it saves you like 15 to 20K in taxes a year. It doesn't work if you make $1 million as a realtor. It doesn't work if you make 50, but if you're like 100 to 200 of income, it's like a no-brainer slam dunk. And we found that out because we know a CPA whose wife is a realtor. And we were sitting there talking to him and he's like, oh, this is what I do with her. I was like, oh, I've never heard of that. Our team now used that idea to go probably pick up 4 or 5 realtor clients. Again, typically wouldn't be huge AUM clients because they don't make a big income, but could totally afford to pay us $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to help them do a financial plan. So we coach within our community, and I challenge advisors all the time. You should have 1 to 2 ideas at all times that are specific targeted prospecting strategies. It's much better than randomly having conversations, hoping somebody knows what to tell you. Instead, hey, I know where these fish are swimming. This idea applies to probably 90% of them. I'm going to take it to them. I can then also go to my CPAs, attorneys, realtors, insurance agent contacts, and ask for specific introductions. When I used to have friends that were centers of influence, I'd say, hey, introduce me to people you know that have money. Their practice does not exist to make me money. They're going to go back to their life, which is crazy, taking their kids to stuff. I've just given them homework to try to think about. Instead of saying, hey, do you have any realtor clients that make $200,000? Oh, I can go through my book of business. Do you have any business owners that have 10 or fewer employees? Do you have any business owners that own commercial real estate, own their own office space? The more specific you can be, the better.
So again, the difference there is instead of just sort of having strategies, I think about like a tool belt, you sort of carry them with you. Then instead you take a strategy and you use that to go target a specific group of people. And essentially it's knocking on someone's door and saying, hey, did you know that I can save you money? And you're like, well, come on in and let's have a cup of coffee and talk about that, right? It just changes the conversation. And I think what's so exciting is there's clients that used to be, and again, God loves them, we love them, but like they're not good clients. They would not have been, a person who loves real estate, for most of you listening to our voices, is not a good client for you right now. You're like, oh, dang it. I wish I was in real estate too in the last 2 years versus the market, right? But that person could become a great client.
And universally, when I would meet with those type of clients, they would be guarded because every one of them, their experience prior to meeting our firm was, you're going to try to sell me something I don't need. You're going to try to talk me out of real estate. And that is still the general impression out there for a lot of business owners, for a lot of real estate people. Right. And it's pleasantly surprising when they have a completely different experience in the first meeting. And
the reason they think that is it's usually true. Yeah. You're usually trying to talk them out of real estate. All right. So the second thing we want to share is if you are charging for your advice, another way to add 50K in revenue, we want to be as practical as possible here, is diversify your client engagement models. That's a fancy way of saying allow people to pay you a different amount in fees right? And also change the way that you deliver your service as it's related. So it's not a one size fits all. So Stan, on a really practical level, give us, because this is our last one before we're going to have another advisor kind of chime in and share about his experiences. But tell us, what does this look like? Give us an example client that you gave a different engagement model and they said yes because of that, where they maybe would have said no.
Yep. I'll start by saying this truth that you all need to hold tight to, because it's a mistake we made over and over again until we internalized it. Where planning and consulting can go south and be frustrating to the advisor is when your service model and your fee don't match. Meaning, if I charge somebody $1,500 and I put them in our A+ service model, that's frustrating. We also don't want to charge somebody $10K and not serve them. So the goal is to say, does my fee match the service model I'm going to deliver? And the good news is it doesn't have to be an all or nothing scenario. In our first or second year of planning, it was always, here's our fee, yes or no. Here's our fee, yes or no.
Right.
Until we learn there's sometimes enough complexity. And the complexity is usually how involved do they want you to be in the implementation, or how many times they want to meet with you. I'll still give you the ideas, but there's a version of this for $5,000 to where you have it and you run with it. And if you have a couple questions, we're here to help. There's a $10,000 option though, where we're actually going to the attorney meeting with you, where we're calling the TPA and asking questions about your 401k. So it was kind of freeing for us to say, yes, we can work with you, but you get to choose which one. And if somebody is kind of frustrated with the fee, okay, we just don't get to meet as much. So there's still a way for us to add value to you, but no one's ever going to try to get a 50% discount on our plan because I'll give it to them. I'm just going to take some of the time away.
Sure.
And so we've done plans where it's been 2 options. We've even done some recently where we've given them kind of 3 options, but you don't have to say it's all or nothing.
Right. And I love and appreciate the idea of don't discount your fee, adjust the level of service, right? It's, if you get a restaurant and you're like, no one's offended if you're like, oh, I want a medium. No, you have to buy a large. No, I just want a medium. Okay. When you charge them appropriately for that, right? So give people pricing options and then give them engagement options, right? It should not be an all or nothing. So here's a question that we have for all of you. And again, we've got some time for Q&A coming up right after we hear from one of our advisors in our community who's implemented this to the max. But this is the time where we start to get introspective and look and say, what's going to be different about next year? And so I want to take a moment to just walk you through this before we hear from Wes. I see Wes standing by. Thanks, Wes. And this is what I want to share with you. And I'm going to have Nicole, or my assistant, put a link into the chat. We want to invite you to learn about all this stuff. We want to invite you. We sincerely hope and believe that today has been helpful on a really practical level. It would haunt me if we were not practical and you didn't walk away with some value. We respect you too much. You're a professional. Your time is valuable. You could be with your family or clients or whatever right now, and you're with us, and we appreciate that. So we've tried to be really practical, but there's no way that we can teach you everything we know in this time period. So we have had over 130 advisors go through our How to Charge for Your Advice program. We've spoken to hundreds of advisors to give them advice on how to charge for their advice. And this is from people saying, we want to come hang out with you for a day, Sten. And we're like, well, that doesn't scale very well to have them come individually. So we are having an event in January in Franklin, just south of Nashville. You fly in the Nashville airport. We're 20 minutes from the airport. And it's called How to Charge Live. If you go to stenmorgan.com/howtolive, then you'll see this page. And I just want to walk through it quickly, and then we'll hear from Wes, and we'll do Q&A. There's a video describing the event here. Description of who is this for, what are we going to teach you. This is our meeting space, beautiful meeting space here in our office building in Franklin. And this is what you're going to learn. You're going to learn our planning process, which we've laid out here for you. You can read through all those details on your own. And these are some of the results that this is real data we've gotten from advisors. And those are all exciting, whether you have charged or have not charged. The one I want to point to is average closing percentage for those who pitched their financial plan for the first time. There are people who want your advice, my friends. And something pretty exciting. These are the hotels, which you wouldn't think is normally exciting, but I've got a special I'm going to share with you today where we're actually going to pay for your hotel room. if you come to the event. We have a free headshot session. We have a photographer who comes. So if you're ever like, hey, I want some headshots, those will be included in the event. And this is where you can grab your seat. And here's the last two things I want to say is, one, if you had a question and you want to meet with me, I have about 10 spots open today. If you want to meet with me today, go to the bottom of this page, stenmorgan.com/howtolive, click on this button, ask a question, and you can find a time to meet with me on Zoom, a 15-minute meeting, and we can meet today to talk about this if you have questions. Because we are offering you we will pay for your hotel room using the discount code FREEHOTEL if you join by December 1st. That's our new deadline. So December 1st, we will cover your hotel room. It basically discounts you $400. And so when your spouse says, why are you going to that thing? They say, well, they paid for my hotel. So, and then the links to the hotels are on that page right here. And they're very, very close. Sten can literally look out his window right now and see this hotel. So it's just a beautiful area. And we invite you to come and learn our full process. One of the people who will be there is Wes Young. Wes, can you unmute for me?
Andy.
How are you, my friend?
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It's always great to hang out with you. Wes, one of the reasons that we bring on other advisors is to prove, hey, this works for them too. You have been charging for your advice for a long time. Wes has a 100% virtual practice. Before it was cool, he was on Zoom. All right. Before he was, he was probably, did you used to use Skype? Or is the practice that old?
GoToMeeting was the dominant tool.
Okay. All right. Great. So that's why you got the gray. I understand. GoToMeeting makes people go gray.
That's right.
So Wes, tell us about, I want to have Wes share about his practice, because Wes has scaled well. He has scaled his idea-based practice well. Wes works with New York Life. Tell us about the size of your team, and tell us how your planning has continued to evolve and grow over the last 12 to 18 months based on your involvement with Sten and what you've learned from him.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Maybe to start off, there's back in the medieval times, they had some really unique torture devices that they created. And I promise this does relate to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
One of them was called death by distraction, and they would tie people's hands to a horse, multiple horses and feet, and then they would have them go. But I just funny because a series I'm listening to brought it up today. But I thought about our practice and the evolution of our practice, and when I observe a lot of advisor practices and get to interact with them through EAN. I think distraction is like the number one limiting behavior when it comes to our business. There was a great advisor many years ago called Ben Feldman. Most people know him. And he said, we come to this business in a state of starry-eyed enthusiasm, and we educate ourselves to a place of sophisticated confusion. It's like when somebody asks you, what do you do? You're like, well, how much time you got? I can do a whole bunch of stuff. Let me list all the products I can sell and all these things. And so we came in, and not unlike probably many people that are on the call, large insurance company, where there wasn't a predetermined path for this. You inherited a way forward that was like, hey, we're going to make you minimally competent, get out there, try and get as many transactions as you can so you can stay in the business long enough to hopefully get smart enough to eventually be able to do this in a more meaningful way. And so early on, we just observed that we wanted to be in the holistic fee-based planning spot. It was, there wasn't a lot of like pathway to get there yet, but that's why I'm grateful for EAN and that exists here for a lot of people. So you don't have to take, we've been in private practice for 20 years. And I think I could have cut this down to, a third of the time as far as where we are. We have 9 team members right now. 3 of them are advisors that, in all of our meetings, there's always 2 advisors. One of them is going to be the lead. One of them is going to be the project manager. And ultimately, a lot of times that project manager, like Cody is on this call, will ultimately take over that client as the lead advisor, because it's just natural. They're hearing from them more than they're hearing from me. So we'll, depends on the year. We run into a bunch of large insurance projects that could make our year a $4 million year. We on a regular run the business year, just with fees, we're going to do about $500,000 in retainer fees this year. And then of course we've got AUM and things on top of that. So, about a $2 million practice on a normal year. Really exciting years running big projects. We have those larger cases, but where we're going is what I'm probably most excited about, because as being a part of EAN, just the intentionality, the absence of distraction, because there are so many things that can distract you to go down a road that's just not profitable. It's not intentional. It's not where you want to end up. So one of the things being a community of advisors like EAN helps is we get real intentional about removing those distractions that may be cool, maybe neat, but what are you really trying to build? What are you trying to become? And then backing into what's the best way to do that. And we love the fee model because we just think it's the most fun way to do this business. We're curators of great ideas. When people leave our meetings, they're excited to go talk to people about it. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier. You know what they're not going to do? They're not going to go, my advisor has a beautiful, asset allocation model for me, or they put me this great insurance. But they'll say, hey, did you know you can pay your kids and deduct it in your business? And then the kids don't pick it up as income. It saved me $7,000 this year of money that was going away to the IRS. They're portable, they're memorable. So this business is insatiable. There's more people out there that we can help than we could possibly ever get to. So that's what I love about it. And I love being a part of this community because everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah. So and I apologize, I didn't say what EAN is. If you're on our email list, you probably know, but the Elite Advisor Network being our company in the community specifically is the one that Wes and Jason and Andy are part of. And that's where we're sharing ideas. I mean, literally in November for our 3 calls, it was us sharing planning ideas, getting in small groups and fleshing those out, all the way down to how do you draw that idea on the board? That's how practical it was. So Wes is done a great job. New York Life loves him. And I also wanted to bring him on because he's an example of someone who's has a great practice, branded as his own, obviously, but within a larger company. And so it can be done. You can navigate that. So Wes, thank you so much for being a great example for advisors who want to scale, who don't want to be just themselves in an admin. Some people do, and that's fine. But others say, I want to bring in junior advisors, and I want to have a larger staff. You can do that. So what I'd like to do now is I've had a couple questions that people have brought in, Sten, but this is just Q&A time. Again, if folks look in the chat, you'll see a link to meet with me today if you have any questions about the event. Otherwise, you can go to stenmorgan.com/howtolive. Nicole, if you could drop that link again, but use the HTTP, so it's a live link, that'd be great. And Sten, I've got a question for you, and then folks, if you have other questions for these other advisors, you can private message me those on Zoom or just put them in the public chat. That's as well. Sten, question for you. When you work with a planning client and you adjust the AUM percentage, have you ever ran into an issue where they stop being a planning client and need to have a difficult fee conversation?
Yeah, I think if you do it as like a hidden benefit, that's a problem. But if you communicate it as, hey, as long as you're a planning client, you have a different tier fee schedule. We have had clients where they've added AUM, if a client has 2-3 million of AUM with us and they've truly exhausted their planning potential, they've retired, no longer a lot of income, they don't own a business. Internally, we've made the business decision to say, hey, we're not going to force that conversation. We're going to kind of let it ride. It's a profitable relationship for the firm already. The planning is what got them in, and we generated revenue for a period of time, and we won't press that. But there are plenty of other times, if you think of a client that has 100 or 200,000 of AUM, 300,000 AUM, there's a point where you're like, hey, we're managing the money because you're paying us, and you will have to be okay with saying, unless somebody has $500,000 with our firm and you truly understand the time that you dedicate to them, meaning every client on your client list is a drain of something. And to what level do you have to have a client to be profitable? And for our firm, if they don't have $500,000 or more, there has to be a planning fee, because they take our time, they take our attention, and you will have to at some point potentially have a conversation with somebody that you managed a couple $100,000 because they were a planning client to say, okay, you have to keep paying us to do that because our asset minimum is $500,000. Those are conversations you're going to come into, and you're going to have to decide as a business owner how you address it. That's how we've gone about it.
All right, this question is for Jason. Jason, someone had asked, how much revenue do you think you anticipate from planning fees in the next year now that you're going to actually start charging for your advice?
The goal is 100,000. My guess is, because I don't have a lot of scaffolding around it, like my team is only 4 individuals, one of which is a paraplanner. She's quite talented, but I believe that this is going to fall largely onto my shoulders. And I think my capacity is going to be between 50 and 100,000. And the reason again is because I'm not quite at the level of being able to do $20,000, $30,000 plans. So I'm going to have to probably do, I would guess, 2 $5,000 plans per month, and that should get me to my goal. So yeah, right in that neck of the woods. And you guys have to understand, we have a lot of clients. We're very high touch with them. I call all of my A clients every 30 days with updates on their accounts and the markets. These are 20-minute phone calls typically. So that's very time consuming. And then I am managing all of the $500 million. So it's spread across 65 individual stocks, lots of different bonds, a few ETFs. So that's very time consuming. So I only have enough time to dedicate to the planning side, but I think I should be able to land somewhere around the 50 to 100 in fees.
And then you hope to bring someone on to help with that?
Yeah, I had that conversation with you and Sten, I think about three months ago. I think the two of you were dead on. This is a who, not how solution. I'm looking for that person. I haven't found that person yet. So in the process.
Right. Yeah. But the hope is by the time they show up, they're paid for to some degree.
Yeah, I think they will be. And then the other thing is I wanted to go through this program and know first, like be in the trenches. So I know exactly what this person will be going through in the future, and I can help them along. So that's why I'm suffering through this myself. So I've got the learning curve down, get to a certain level of competency, and then hand it off. Right.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Jason. So this question is for Wes. A lot of these ideas evolve around taxes, Wes. How have your clients felt about paying their CPA in addition to paying you? Wes, you got me? You can take that as well, Sten.
Yeah, I'll jump in. You do make it clear during the planning process, like the implementation, like we don't write your will or file your tax return. Most CPAs welcome our involvement. And clients most of the time are frustrated with like, why are my CPAs not proactive? It feels like whenever I talk to them at tax time, they're barely getting things done. And I share with clients, I spent years being frustrated with CPAs, attorneys, and other professionals until I realized that's not really their job. Like they never told you they were going to do that. But there's an assumption that they're this like catch-all, every answer, they're taking care of it, I'm handled. There's clients out there that own businesses. Oh, I have an advisor, it's my CPA. Well, not really. Like your CPA is going to file stuff and try to keep their head above water, but they're not proactive and creative. And so when you can set the expectation that, hey, we need your CPA, what they're doing is important, but here's all the other stuff we're going to do. A CPA can only know so many things. Typically, it's pretty well accepted, and people will realize then moving forward that my CPA is there to file it, but this is my strategy team. Every meeting I have with clients, even if it's the first meeting, it's a strategy meeting. So they start to think about like, that's where I get my strategy from. And that's where I talk things out. But then I have other people that push the paperwork for me.
Awesome. Well, we got a couple other questions that have rolled in. The first one is, outside the CFP, are there any other designations you'd recommend getting? Or is it better, or is it acceptable to just go get great planning ideas and strategies from your circle of influence?
I think you have to decide, we got a lot of cool feedback from our superpower episodes podcast. Whenever we talk about that, is that when I was 24 getting in this business, I had to get my CFP, ChFC, and took some other tests just to build my own confidence. It's not that I dumped all of that knowledge on somebody in one meeting and converted them as a client. Like I just needed to feel better about myself. So I would say, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you need a confidence boost? Then go for it. Study as much as you can. You are the product. The more ideas you know, the higher the fees you can charge. Your superpower might be technical knowledge. And that was mine early on because I didn't know anybody, didn't have a warm market. Like I just had to know more ideas than other advisors to get the business.
Right.
But you may also say, I'm just going to really focus on building a COI network. So I know enough to say, hey, there's an opportunity here, but then I'm going to have the people at my disposal to go get the ideas. We have some advisors that hate studying, hate taking tests, don't want to do any more certifications late in their career. And so they focus on surrounding themselves with smart people.
Right. And folks, we're going to just keep answering questions. So keep them coming.
Hey, Andy, can I add on to Sten's point real briefly?
Please.
Yeah, I made a decision not to get my CFP. I made a decision to join EAN instead and just immerse myself in Sten's process. And I would say, I would go back to the idea that Abraham Lincoln never got a law degree. I don't think Bill Gates has a degree in computer programming. You can learn these ideas. It's about the ideas and how you present them and how you quantify them to folks. So I understand that some folks need that designation. Maybe it is a confidence booster, but I'd be very mindful how you spend this money. That's not a cheap credential to get. I've found I've learned enough from being in this community to be well armed with great ideas. And like I said earlier, you don't have to know all of them. You just have to have a nice little arsenal of maybe it's a dozen great ideas, and you are going to really separate yourself. So I feel very strongly about that. It could be because I'm not a CFP, but I'm proof that you don't need that credential to succeed at this. So there's my 2 cents.
That's great. And I think we all need to understand that when we present ideas to clients, we're giving them just enough to join us in a process. Meaning, hey, here's some ideas that you didn't know about. Here's some potential outcomes that are worth the fee I'm charging you. Now let's get to work. I'm not saying, hey, here's all the answers to all your problems up front. Pay me for everything, and then you're never going to hear from me again. You have time to solve their problems. You have time to ask more questions. We just have to take seriously that we need to give them enough up front for them to shorten the trust gap. Most advisors are out there saying, hey, great to meet you. I hope you like me. Like, I think you're going to like me more than other advisors, and I'm going to rely on relationship. I'm saying give them enough value up front that the trust gap of working with you is essentially closed. Like, I've already proven my value to you, so there's no leap of faith here. Now, and you'll develop these phrases over time, but when I sit in a meeting with somebody and I give them a couple ideas they've never heard of, and I put some rough math to it, and I've just 3x'd my fee in an hour meeting with them, I will say, I've just paid for myself 3 times over in an hour. Imagine what I can do in the next 12 months. To be honest, that's what clients want to hear from their advisor. Not, hey, this may work out. Like, I don't know, you can buy this thing. Like, I would be a terrible client for that type of advisor. I'd eat their lunch. Questions, all this stuff. But if I sat with somebody that was a professional and they just said, follow me.
Yep.
Me being on the team is going to increase the probability of you being successful 100 times over. Okay. We obviously have to know that we can deliver to be that confident in it. But yeah, to Jason's point, I think it's confidence. There's so many places to get the ideas, but don't get hung up or give yourself the excuse to not take action because you think you have to have a PhD in tax or finance strategies. You need to have enough ideas to convince them and also convince yourself that this is a worthwhile engagement. And then now you're going to have a process in place to where you're going to deliver. You're going to track the things you do over the next 10 to 12 months. And then by the time you get to the 12-month mark, you're going to have a documented deliverable, 1 or 2 pages that actually quantify the things they did to say, hey, let's do this again. Because your investment was this, and look at all the stuff we did together. Oh, by the way, there's more to do. And you keep going.
Yep. Hey, let me say this. I'm checking my email, and some of you are making appointments with me for today, which is awesome. If you are considering coming to How to Charge Live, jump on the last link at the bottom of the page. Is ask a question and meet with me today. I got time. I want to answer your questions directly. All right.
This event will, I promise you, make you money. It'll pay for itself quickly. But also you will have prospecting, first meeting, whiteboarding skills that we will practice together in person, that if you ever go toe-to-toe with another advisor, it's game over. When I sit in a conference sometimes, and this is kind of shocking to the crowd, but I say, imagine if I came behind you and met with every prospect after you met with them. How confident are you that you'd win that business? And it's not because I'm just better. It's because the stuff I talk about, I'm on a whiteboard. I have these creative ideas. Like from this event, you will learn things that will, change your practice forever moving forward. So I hope you guys can make it. It's going to be a fun time.
I got to jump through these. Anthony asked one just a second ago about outside of his COIs, what resources are you using to continue to learn new ideas? I think our Elite Advisor Network, our community advisors, we're literally just sharing ideas with each other. And not just the idea, but how to communicate the idea, even all the way down to like analogies. Like, how do you explain this in a way that, people go, oh, I didn't understand now, but I understand it because you compared it to something I do understand, right? Or how do you draw it up on the board in a way? The other is Sten wrote a book. Sten, tell me about your book full of ideas.
Yeah, this was what I need the client to feel in a meeting or a prospect is I wish I knew that sooner. I've never heard of that before. And most of those ideas are not tied to a product. So most clients don't hear about them from the average advisor. It was the advisor I was for years. So this book is a prospecting resource for our firm also. But it's, hey, and I'll put a note card in the book with a handwritten note, say, hey, go to chapter 7 and check out this tax idea. And I send that to a business owner, much better than a business card or a generic mailer. And I say, hey, have you ever heard of this? And all I have to get them to say is, I haven't heard of that before.
Right.
Okay, well, that's one idea. Here's others. Like, I wish I knew that sooner. I wish I knew that sooner. Every client has felt that in some capacity in their life. And that is something we can press on. And when you are meeting with a prospect or a client, you have to get them to feel that way.
So the book, Wish I Knew That Sooner, it's a bunch of ideas, a bunch of planning ideas. And so, yeah, you can find planning ideas. I was literally watching YouTube the other day, and the triple tax benefit of basically an unused HSA account video came up. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess YouTube wanted me to learn about that, right? And I was asking one of the advisors that Sten works with about this. He goes, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, we've used that one with clients before. And so
we also subscribe to like CPA firm newsletters. There's a group in Nashville called Cherry Beckert, and they're regional. They buy up a bunch of specialty tax office. So we subscribe, we join their calls when they have them. Horse's Mouth is a group we partnered with that does a bunch of calls. You just need to fold into your process now. Like, I'm constantly learning.
Yeah.
Because I promise you are one new idea away from your next A+ client.
Stan, are you independent RIA or part of a larger independent firm?
Independent RIA.
All right, wonderful. Does EAN offer an idea library where the best ideas you mentioned are up for grabs? Yes, we are constantly iterating that. And at the event, we will literally have whiteboards, multiple whiteboards at tables, and you will draw and also learn how to illustrate ideas from other advisors. Wes will be there, Andy will be there, Sten will be there, I'll be there. So yes, you'll be learning directly.
And if you're on this call and you do nothing else, get a whiteboard in your meeting space and spend at least 30% of your meetings with prospects and clients standing up. Nobody wants to be in a meeting where you're sitting down the whole time, energy is slowly draining from the room. Like, if you stand up and you're teaching, you're a coach, you're the expert in the room. Like, you've established yourself, you're not sitting across the table the whole time. So that's one small idea that our members take seriously, and it would change your practice. So do that tomorrow if you can.
Awesome. So a couple more meetings come through. So again, if you have questions, go to the bottom of that, stenmorgan.com/howtolive and let's talk. So Sten, what do you do with an existing client that you feel like wants to, or you should, and maybe this is a question for, let me ask this. What do you do when you say, this person didn't start as planning, but I want to shift them to planning? Do you have those conversations now? What advice do you have if someone is in that situation? They're like, man, this person would have been a great planning client. They're a client. How do I shift that? And let me ask this really directly. How do you do that? I'll just say this, like, in an honest way. Like, I mean, you can't charge them more for the same thing you're already doing.
I mean, honestly, you are not delivering what you can if you're doing it for free. I promise you that. Like, it's just not on your radar to the extent it could be. So if you put a loose process around it and you present it as a new offering, I would argue you're obligated to do that to your clients. Because imagine they met with my team the next week and we presented it, it would feel like a completely different offering to them. And I wouldn't even make them fire you right away. I'd say, oh, great. Andy's managing your money. Sounds good. He's great. Let's talk about all this other stuff, and here's the fee for it. there's a good chance you're moving your money 6 months later, but you need to position as something totally different, a different experience with different value. And probably, 5 of our first 10 planning clients were existing clients that own businesses. And I was able to go to them and be like, hey, I just want you to know that we have this service. We've added this expertise to our team. We love managing your money, and that's great. But we also feel there's a lot of opportunity over here. Let's have another strategy meeting and talk about it.
Wonderful. Best practices around virtual whiteboarding. Obviously, a lot of people are meeting virtually now. I'll take this one. You want to find some way to be able to draw on a screen. So that could be a Microsoft Surface, it could be an iPad. There's a program that we really like called Notability, Notability, Notability. It's like a $10 program. But you want to, another way you can get around this too, is you can have illustrations ready to go. But it is important that you are able to, if you can, draw on your screen. And when I say illustrations, I don't mean numbers. I mean literally drawings, right? We want to simplify this as much as possible. But having an iPad, having a Microsoft Surface, sharing it to your screen with Zoom. I really think the pen is really powerful here. Literally the Apple Pencil or the Surface Pencil, whatever they call theirs, Zoom has some capabilities, but if I try to draw on my screen right now, you would all laugh because it's really hard. So those are best practices, just being able to draw those there and for that to be your whiteboard. And again, if you want to differentiate yourself from a vast majority, then you need to simply learn how to illustrate and explain ideas in a way that's very simple. And that will separate you. And here's the test. Here's the test. You're good at this when the client or prospect you just met with can leave and go explain it to someone else. And I have 100% confidence that every single person hearing my voice can do that. That is a great teacher. A great teacher teaches someone so well that person can then teach someone else. And I know, because I get to walk around the office and hear people leave the office and go, Sten, that was another great one. And this is one of my favorites, Sten. I don't know if you remember this, but they're like, Sten, you're the only person I like talking about money with. Every other person I talk about money, it's always like, ugh, right? But so that can be true of all of you as well. And we want it to be. Sten, I'm gonna, look through one more time. Let's see here. How does compliance work with delivering advice around tax and legal? What concerns should people have as it relates to compliance?
I think with anything, you're going to say, you're going to have the disclaimers, like on every one of our proposals at the bottom, it says, we are not, CPAs or attorneys. But the market is not cornered, and you do not require a license to share planning ideas. And so you need to make clear, and we say, hey, I'm not going to file your taxes. We'll talk to your CPA. I'm not going to write your estate plan. We'll talk to your attorney, but we are your strategy team, and you're paying us for ideas, meetings. We're going to, our goal is to make all of your choices better because we help you make more informed decisions. So compliance, I've navigated this with Mass Mutual, Thrivent. I've been on their calls with them. Like, it's obviously a concern because it's new. And the question is not, is it worth it? A lot of times these bigger firms are like, who do we want to give the permission to do it? Because we feel like they have enough expertise or business acumen to do it well. I'm not running into any industry, any large firm that is questioning the value or the legitimacy of advisors charging for this. You just need to make sure that you have a good process. You take good Salesforce notes. The monthly updates we send to clients essentially are us tracking all of our activities. So with a good process, compliance loves our files, and we have our attorneys. When I get audited once a year, due to our size, like, hey, it looks great. Keep up the good work. So I would try not to let compliance be the excuse or the frustration that causes you not to do it, because it is possible.
And remember, and I love this attitude that Sten has about compliance, which is compliance is there to help you, like, not get in trouble, right? They're not just Debbie Downers who just want to make other people's lives miserable, even though it might feel like that sometimes.
Some of them are, but not
some of them are. But the reality of it is that they are trying to protect you. And so, Sten, you had said something to me about compliance once, about just the way you approach them. It's more like, hey, here's how we're going to make this work versus, can I do this? Right?
Yeah, I don't ask them. I just say, hey, how can we make this work? And I've had compliance departments over the years stop me from doing things because we all want to do great things, not good things. And there are plenty of things in your business you're going to run across that sound good. Hey, I want to do something different. But as business owners, we have to decide, is this worth the risk? And at times, getting a book pushed through when I was affiliated with Mass Mutual back in the day, people thought that would be impossible to do.
Yeah.
I did it. It was a headache having a custom website when I was part of a small broker dealer. Very frustrating, hard to do. So where there's a will, there's a way, but also you have to decide, is it worth the headache and the force required? And for me, looking back, being able to charge for my advice is the thing I would die on the hill for. So figure it out.
I want to wrap with this. We don't have any more questions coming in. If you do, pop them in, and maybe I can even email a response. But we are very, very confident in the same way that when Sten puts a plan together and says this will pay for itself and more, we are very, very confident that How to Charge Live is an example of that. You are not trading $4,000 for $4,000. You are trading your investment, your flight, your hotel. Actually, we're paying for your hotel, but you're trading that investment. It is a seed that will grow and can be, as the top of the page there says, learn how to start charging for your advice and build a 6-figure planning business. That is not smoke, my friends. All right, that is real, and it can happen quicker than you think. Part of this is just Sten's deep desire for you to get paid what you're worth, to get paid for the ideas that you spent years and years and years gathering. And to stop doing what the industry told you, which is you have to give it away. That's not true. You can, but you don't have to. And actually, you shouldn't, because your client will value it as much as you've put a value on it. And when your value on it is 0, unfortunately, that's how much a client values it. We have taught hundreds of advisors how to do this, and we work with dozens and dozens on a weekly basis to refine this. We're very confident that this is going to revolutionize and change your business. And I think, like Jason, make the business more interesting, even if you've been in it for a while. So we understand this is an investment, but it's a great investment, and we stand behind what we offer. Sten, I'm going to give you the last word. And folks, again, find a time to meet with me. And if you can't meet with me today, you can go to that same link and you'll see times after the holiday. I understand that as well. But go to that link in the chat. If you can't meet with me today, that's fine. You can meet with me after the holiday. So Sten, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, no, we are going to run out of seats. So if the time is right for you to kind of shake up the way you've done it, and you want to kind of be on the train before, the industry is 5 to 10 years behind what we're doing, it's coming though. So hopefully you guys can join us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason, Wes, and Andy, for being here. Great to work with you guys and see the success you're having with planning. Friends, we want to help you, and we can help you. We will help you if you'll let us. So look forward to seeing you hopefully in January. If you have other questions, reach out to us. God bless you all. Have a great Thanksgiving. Sten, good to see you, my friend. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, bud.
See everybody.